I hope that we will have the privilege. I will hope that we will have the privilege one day to have you back again, because what I have here on my right, and I still want to discuss with you, is a very long list of things.
Yeah.
For years, I tried to join SuperSport, but before then, I was like predominantly doing football. So I covered the PSL for like 10 years, and for years, I mean, the pinnacle in SA of broadcasting is you want to see yourself at SuperSport, and I had tried, and I know people there, and I tried to get in, and we had meetings, I did auditions, I did everything you can imagine for 10 years to try and get into SuperSport, and it just never happened. And at some point, I kind of gave up on it, and I started getting bored with football, to be honest. And then I started covering a lot more golf while I was at ETV. And that's when then I started meeting the people within the golf industry, space, you know. And through that, then I met the executive producer at SuperSport for golf. And literally we played a golf day at Serengeti the one day. And then a card, they just says, why don't you join SuperSport? I'm like, bruh.
Are you serious? Just like that?
Just like that. And he said, okay. If you
and did he know that you had that journey with SuperSport before the time or not?
No, he didn't really know, because I had never talked to him about it.
Yes.
But I had spoken to the football, because I at the time, I mean, I wanted to go and cover football, and SuperSport had gotten the rights to the PSL. So working for a non-rights broadcaster was just becoming hard, because all you're doing is going to film the practice and the post-match stuff. So it literally becomes monotonous. Like every week is the same thing. I could tell you what a coach is going to say, whether he wins, loses, or draws. I could write the press release before he even speaks. So I got bored with it. And so that's why I then started covering golf, because I love golf anyway. So I started covering golf as well. And yeah, literally that's almost how it happened. And then he was like, oh no, cool, then if you're keen, I'll chat to my boss and we'll make a meeting happen. Then he chatted to the boss, who was the CEO at the time, and he said, yeah, I met with him like 6 months ago. We said we'll try to work out something, but if you're saying I must hire him, then yeah, let's make it happen. And literally a month later, I was signing my contract.
Crazy.
My word. Crazy. And I suppose it's been
the
ever-changing.
No, it's been the best decision ever. Like, I couldn't be happier. Like, honestly, like, also, yeah, I won't badmouth my previous company, but like, it's literally chalk and cheese.
Yeah. And how did you get into golf?
Golf, my uncle was a caddy. Like, growing up, my uncle was a caddy.
So Nabuhle,
Dlamini,
her parents, dad was actually. Am I right? I remember that.
Yes, her dad also caddy, then became a coach.
So small story, I'm from Swaziland originally. Me and Nabuhle grew up together with Swaziland Junior Golf. I knew Johannes, he used to coach me. We go back, we played Junior British Open together in Liverpool. So she's like a sister to me, actually. We go back a long way, so she's amazing.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
And essentially almost the same thing. So what my uncle would do is that he was a member at Krugersdorp Golf Club, and he without fail, he played every single Sunday of his life. Like, he had his standard tea time at Krugersdorp, but he would practice every Saturday and sometimes play Saturday and during the week as well. But on Saturdays, he would then take me and my cousins just to go mess around, literally at the driving range.
How old were you then?
I was probably, let's say, between 10 and 12. Somewhere between 10 and 12. It happened randomly. I mean, it wasn't an every weekend thing, because I'd go visit the one time, and then during school holidays, either they come to my house or I go to the one guy, or we go to the other cousin's house. But when we were at my one particular cousin, and his dad played the golf, so we were there. We knew driving range on the weekend, but I always said, I think he only took us so he could clean his clubs and he never really taught us.
You thinking he's doing you such a nice favor in the background? He's going, clean clubs, baby.
But the way things work, right? Like, if my uncle doesn't take us to go clean his clubs and mess around at the driving range, I don't get to sit here with you guys. That's literally what it is.
It activated everything.
You know what I mean? And so, out of the three of us, the older cousins that he took, I think I'm the only one who kind of gravitated towards the sport, and then I just started playing. But even then, I played like literally for social. I mean, I played with my mates at school. At some point, I thought, yes, maybe I want to make a career out of this. But I never really did anything that would have pushed me to a point where I did enough to try and go on and become a pro. And I think when I left home to go to tertiary, I completely stopped playing golf. And it was only when I started working again that I bought myself a set of clubs, and then you start finding people that play. Then once I got into media, then you get to play a few golf days, and literally that's how. And
now you're sponsored by Titleist.
Now, listen, like I say, if I don't clean those clubs, and my uncle loved Titleist. Like, funny enough, that's all he played like his entire life. Well, maybe not before, but like from what I can remember since I was a kid, always played Titleist.
Crazy.
My goodness, OG.
So it's crazy.
But it's sort of just leads me into something which I read about you, that you when you started the foundation, it was about golf.
Yeah.
But then you also wanted to bring the educational part into that. Maybe you can just give us that perspective as to why that's important, because OG, I'm very interested in that. I always say when I was younger, I wish that the school system opened our minds a little bit more about what you can do in life. It was sort of, this is the route that you have to go. You have to go to study. You have to go and do this in order for you to make. But it's purely a part or a time in your life. And I always wish that it was a finishing part of my school. So after I get out of school, somebody can grab me and say, okay, Albert, I'm going to open your eyes now.
This is what you can do.
To the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so initially when I started the foundation, it was literally because I wanted, and I guess it's like a common phrase these days where people say you want to grow the game, but you can't grow the game without giving, especially kids in township, access to the game.
Yeah.
Now for me, the access was my uncle playing golf. So if my uncle doesn't play golf, I probably never get to pick up a club. Maybe later on in life I do. I've got so many friends now that wish they had played as kids or had played maybe 10 years earlier or something like that. And it's only because they never had access. But we had access to football because it was easy. Every day we come back from school, someone's got a football. So we're going to play in the street. And then some go on and become professional footballers. Some never did. But none of us really thought about becoming a professional golfer. And for me, it's like there's probably an avenue there. You might find a kid who is really talented, but unless someone introduces them to the game, you're never even going to find that out. And that's why I started the foundation. But also now working within the golf industry, and I guess it's in any industry, especially professional sports, you realize the amount of work it takes, the amount of support, the amount of luck, the amount of sort of factors that it takes for someone to be successful at that sport is so much, and probably less than 1% of the people will actually go on and become professionals.
Make it.
But the beauty about golf is that you don't necessarily have to become a professional golfer. I mean, you playing junior golf, you probably thought you wanted to be a pro golfer, but look at where you kind of like pivoted to. It's still within the golfing space. I'm in the golfing industry, but I don't play golf professionally. Someone else manages a golf club, but they're not a professional golfer. So there's so much that the industry in itself opens you up to, that you don't necessarily just only have to be a professional golfer. The industry in itself has got so many avenues that you can look at. But to also get there, you need to be educated, to a certain level. And unless you can take care of that part, honestly, just giving a kid the tools to play golf is almost useless. So let's help you play golf, get into the sport, because that gives you the networks and everything else that you need to access every other part of your life. But if we can help you get educated as well, even if when you turn 18 and you're like, you know what, guys, thank you so much for helping me teach this game, for teaching me this game. I've learned these particular values and these are things I can take on in my life. But my focus is on becoming a chemical engineer. But you've kind of given me an avenue to get to that spot, and I thank you for that. And we shouldn't then throw in, the towel and say this person doesn't want to play golf. We want to create the avenues to be able to say it's fine, continue playing golf, but we will help you to become a chemical engineer. And we're still in an infant phase, so we're growing. We want to put all these plans together so that in 10 years time we have a seamless process where we know we get a kid at 10, 12 years old, they come, they learn the game. By the time they're 18, this kid can bang a ball like anyone else, and if they want to play golf, we can continue to support them to do that. But if they want to go become an information technologist or whatever else they want to do, we still continue to support them in their dream. And in that way, what we want them to do is that then come back to the hood and, you know, instill the values and everything else they would have learned through us and impart that and share that with other kids. And in that way, I think we then change a community and not just give kids a golf club and hope that they're going to make it.
Yeah. It's why, so I think I understand why you perhaps started that. If you go look at your own journey, where somewhere at a particular time your uncle activated something within you that changed your mind to something else. It opened up more possibilities. And like you said, it started with golf, but today you're in golf, but you're also a sports commentator. So you have still stayed in sort of the sport field of it, but that was the activation for you. And how do you feel that foundation is supported at the moment? Are you getting good support for it? People...
Oh man, you know, it's tough, and I think post-COVID pandemic, it's gotten even worse.
Okay.
When we started, like everything else, I always say just get started, and people will find you along the journey and get to support you. And we've had some incredible people that have supported us financially, with product, with equipment, with a lot of other things, especially their time, and it's been great. But we like so far off where we can say, we can point to something and say, this is our success.
Okay.
And we understand it takes a lot of money first and a lot more support. But we've had incredible support so far. I think this is our 4th year of existence. But we found that post-COVID pandemic, it's gotten harder. I mean, everybody took a knock. You know? So to go knock on a door and say to someone, listen, can you give us X amount? We'd like to do this. They probably have to now go through where before I could come to you and you'd say, yes, I can give you 20,000 rand, go do whatever. He probably has to pass that by 3 other bosses now who have to say, do we really want to spend that 20,000 there when we can do here, and this is going to help our company do this, than just to give it to some guy who wants to help kids play golf, you know. So it's become a bit harder. But if anything, it's just made me more determined to try and work even harder to make a success out of it. So I will say it's been tough, but I understand. I mean, we've come out of like the toughest 2 years anybody's ever faced in the history of humanity, but we keep going.
OG, firstly, I think it's so nice that you don't judge necessarily, to say that it has, you know, circumstances has changed in the last 2 years. Cash flows is certainly something you always focus on, but you're also having the patience with the process, which you're also teaching your kids, that it doesn't just come overnight success.
Oh, absolutely.
You have to continuously put work into it, and you can't just expect 6 months later that it's the biggest foundation, it supports 150 kids. There's a journey to it.
Oh man, I would love to have that. I mean, I look at there's and in that as well, I guess there's a history to everything else, but there's something great that Steph Curry's doing in the US with the Underrated Tour. You look at that and it just looks successful, but I'm not a multi-million-dollar athlete that can, you know, put that sort of money into something.
Or make one phone call and someone's just gonna, you know, give
send you a check for $20 million US dollars.
You know what I'm saying?
100%. It's and so also 330 million people.
Also compared,
and I think it's 30 million golfers, roughly.
You know what I mean?
160,000
in the country,
Plus, there's only a handful of corporates that are really involved, you know, in the golf industry. But I do think in South Africa, sports plays a very special role.
Oh, no.
If you look at our history.
No, listen, there's no doubt about that. If anything, that's probably the one common unifier in this country is sport. And the beauty about it, that's why I said we've had some incredible people that have supported us. And I don't think if those people don't love sport, or don't love golf, they then come to support us. Actually, it's funny that people will come to me and say, oh man, I see you've got like such incredible sponsors. Can you help me get, and the first thing I say to a person, I'm like, my man, let me tell you, what you see and the reality I don't always match up. And I'll tell you this much, for every 5 sponsors that you see me have, I've probably sent out 40 proposals.
I hear you. But that's important,
Right.
OG, to mention.
And
The work behind the scenes, nobody ever
no
sees.
one ever sees that, right? And the 5 that you do see, let me tell you, 9.5 out of 10 times, it's based on a relationship I might have formed with a person either leading that company or works in that company, and that's how I get the sponsorship. So I base a lot of stuff on trying to build relationships with people, because then it's easier for me to come sit down with you and say, listen, I've got a golf day coming up. I need X amount of money. Can you help? More than likely, if a person has a relationship with you, they'll either say yes or say, listen, I can't give you X, but I'll give you Y.
Yes.
You know, whereas I can randomly send a proposal. Chances are someone's going to open it, maybe not even open it. But if you don't have a relationship, that person, it's easy for them to pass it by and say, sorry, man, I can't help. But even in getting that no, you can't now, you know, back off and say, oh, it's not going to happen. If anything, it should motivate you a lot more to say, let me go hustle harder, knock at another door. And trust me, for the 40 that will say no, one will say yes. And that might be the only one you need.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day we do get to a point where I can
Yeah.
call someone and they give
Yeah.
me 20 million.
Yeah.
But until that happens, we just keep grinding, because it's not necessarily about me. But I always say to the kids we've got now, I said, the sad part about it is that the hard graft you're going through now, you guys are not really going to be the beneficiaries of it. In 10, 12, 15 years' time, the kids that will be part of the foundation then, those guys are going to have it nice. But while we still can now, we do what we can with the little bit that we have.
And I spoke about with songs about this the other day. And if you don't mind, I just want to hover on that, because I don't think kids today, I, as a small businessman, I get it all the time. People come and say, can I get this? Can I get that? And I almost want to say that it's the many years of sweat to get where you are.
Yeah.
And it sort of feels sometimes that people just cheapen the process. Like, okay, I asked, but they didn't give. But then I was like, how did you propose it?
Yeah.
What did you say to them? What was your value to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, there's no two ways about it. People are nice, but if you're running a business, that's what I said. Like, I can't just give you 20,000 rand for the sake of me giving you 20,000 rand. One, the person's going to ask you, what am I getting back in return? Right? And if I can't give you that value in return and even more, it's going to be hard for you to justify taking out money out of your budget to run your business to give to someone else.
Yeah.
You know, and therefore it is in what do you present? What are you giving to the person that you're asking for help from? What are you going to give them? Are they really going to benefit by being associated with you? And what is that benefit? Some people are doing so well that that's not even a consideration for
Yeah.
them, you know. But for the most part, it's not how it works, you know. We would all love to just get stuff for free and it's nice and chilled, but that's not, in reality, that's not how things work.
Are there some equipment sponsors that are sponsoring your foundation with regards to golf clubs right now, or is it just like a mixed bag? You can
Look,
get what
I
you
mean,
can at the time?
and the beauty about being in the industry is that then you get to know like everyone, you know. And for years I was sponsored by TaylorMade. Let me actually go back a little bit. When I joined TaylorMade, there was a guy called Aaron Russell.
Yes.
And Aaron worked at TaylorMade. And literally one day we were at a TV show sitting in the audience, and we literally came up with what is now the foundation. And he was like, listen, man, I've got a bunch of equipment that I don't sell, and after a certain period of time, I just don't know what to do with it. And can you actually think of a way that we can make this work? And I said, bruh, this is the craziest thing, because
There's
literally
so much shortage.
Literally 2 days before that, I got a call from a friend of mine who used to play for the South African national football team, Reneilwe Letsholonyane, and he's from Meadowlands in Soweto. And he calls me and he's like, man, these guys called me up to say, can I come help them out with football, get some balls and stuff? And while I was there, I realized they've got a makeshift driving range and they need help with that as well. And I said, listen, man, I know a friend of mine who's in golf and maybe he can make a plan. So when Reneilwe calls me, I'm literally thinking about how can I help? How can I give back? And I honestly had no idea. I know I want to give back in some way, but I don't know where to start. Now, literally in the space of 2 days, I've had 2 people have a conversation with me that kind of brings it together. Like, okay, I've got these people in Meadowlands and I've got this guy now who's got this equipment. We can start something here. And that's literally how we started with TaylorMade and Adidas, that they would then give us clothes and equipment. And then it kind of blew up from there, because then all other manufacturers then come and people have stock that's left over and we do receive it. Then we got to a point where, yes, as we're taking in so much stuff, but now we don't have storage. Okay, cool. Now we need to sort out storage. Now I need to go find someone who can buy us a container that we built. Now we found a container, but gosh, we want to start the educational side. So forget storage. We're going to take this container, turn it into a makeshift library. We do that. Fortunately, that happens just before pandemic. So when kids were not being able to go to school, they could come to our library and study there. And that worked out. But back to your question, that's how it started for us. And even now, I mean, even though I'm sponsored by Titleist, I got guys at Callaway that will call me and say, listen, man, we've got some product X that we either are going to get rid of, or do you have an avenue of how we can give it to someone? And because I'm I guess the basis of having started the foundation was because I want to give back. And because I then have access to those people, I can help someone else who doesn't have access to them. So I'm not going to say to Callaway, listen, I'm sponsored by Titleist, I can't take your stuff. Yes. Because the kid that doesn't have a bag,
it's irrelevant.
He doesn't really care
what bag he plays
what
with.
bag it is.
Yeah.
You ever seen a kid get a brand new bag or up? You should see these kids when I give them a brand new driver. Blows their mind. You know, he doesn't really care who it came from. But if I say no, I'm then denying him that joy, that happiness of getting a brand new driver, especially a kid who for the last 2 years, and unfortunately the sad part is I know people want to give, but then you also get a call from someone who hasn't touched the club in 10, 12 years, is cleaning out his garage, and then he calls me, OG, I've got these clubs, can I give them to you? And I'm like, bruh, can you play in those clubs? So why do you want my kids to play in those clubs?
I hear you.
If you want to help, give me some money, let me go buy them some junior golf clubs. That way you'll have helped me. So I appreciate the people that call me to give me clubs, but have a look at them. Think to yourself, would I play with these clubs? And if the answer is no, don't offer them to me. But if you give me something that's going to make this kid excel, absolutely, I'll take it.
But OJ, I think that's so important, because we think, so let's say you're moving house. Now you've got all those sorts of extra stuff. You think, I'm going to drop it off at a charity, and what a favor I did them. What people don't realize is 80% of it's not usable.
Yeah.
That becomes their problem to dump.
Exactly.
That's a cost.
That's
so you've actually just placed cost onto the charity. So I always believe when a charity says, and they always have to set it up in such a humble way that, listen, we appreciate all the gifts, but can we focus on these 10 items as an example? I see that as focused. I'm like, okay, fantastic. I know that if I give that, that's going to be used.
It's going to work.
And I always feel like charity is not when you clean up your garage and you say, all my shit, that's over. Yeah. That to me isn't charity. No. To me, that's, well, you're just dumping it.
You're dumping it. You're
dumping it.
Garage.
It's more convenient
your kid. You say
and make it someone else's.
Exactly. You say this toy, my kid can't play with it anymore. It's broken. But then another kid can play with it. What? I don't understand. But that's people sometimes also, OG. And I always just say that's a particular type of kind, because most people understand it's not bad for a charity to ask specifically. Food doesn't help me. I need cash because this is how I do it. Then you think to yourself, but this is a bit cheeky. No, it's not. It's not. It's a function of their job, and it's how they perform it and how they get it up. So when did the Rolani Mombasa Foundation get involved? Was that so that you can join forces a little bit?
No, so that's how Reneilwe.
Is that okay?
That's how Reneilwe linked me up with.
So I just completely messed it up as an Afrikaans guy that name.
No, because I didn't mention
Rolani Mombasa.
Yeah, Rolani Mombasa. So Rolani, same thing. So he grows up in Meadowlands, so he understands how tough it is to come out of that township where you literally have nothing and you have to try and make something for yourself. And for him to start that foundation, he's like, how can I help the kids in my community have a better chance of getting out? You know? And Rolani has never played golf in his life. So, I mean, I'll share with you guys the pictures of what that place used to look like. It was a dumping site, literally a dumping site. Cleaned it up, gave the kids some hope of saying, listen, when I come back from school, instead of passing this dumping site, which is now becoming a safety hazard because people hide there, then they mug you when you're passing at night. Now it's cleaned up. It's got a library there. So what happens when the parents pass, they are now comfortable to be able to say, yes, I can actually send my kid there because I know for 2-3 hours somebody's taking care of them, you know, and then through that you give them some brilliant like experiences. I mean, for us, and I include myself, even though I grew up in a township, like we are so privileged that there's certain things we don't understand. There's kids who in their lives will grow up and never sleep in a hotel. That's something you and I might take for granted. About 4 or 5 years ago, we got an opportunity to take, so we said to the kids, you know, the ones who do well in school this year, will take 10 of you to the Nedbank Golf Challenge. And it was the works. We take you there. They slept at the Palace. Wow. These kids never slept in a hotel room in their lives. Slept at the Palace. Then you get to watch some of the best golfers in the world. Get to watch Tommy Fleetwood play. Yes, they kids. Ultimately, they just want to go to the Valley of Waves. But that experience has stayed with a lot of them for so long that they want that again. So it's like this year they're asking, what do we have to do this year for us to be able, because we saw now the tournament's back. What do we have to do for us to make the 10? So now I'm under pressure to say, I need to make sure then I secure an experience for these kids to be able to go do that. Because what that does ultimately, it also gives them a sense that they can dream and they can see this is stuff I can achieve and work towards. And what I said to them was like, you got two choices. Like, I'm trying to give you access and hopefully a lane for you to get to experience these things, but not only just so you have a nice time and go back home, but that when you get back home, you're like, man, people live like this, so it's possible. So if I work hard, my reward might be that one day I'll be able to take my family and we can stay at the Palace and I'll be able to watch 4 days of fantastic golf. And at the time, because I've been taught so much, I'm giving back to the community where I'm from. So I need to instill in these kids that there's a world out there that's achievable, but to get there, you need to work hard.
I loved how you positioned it, OG, about it's not a luxury trip to the Palace.
No.
It's a life-changing moment for the kids, which then around them, they also change lives.
Yeah.
And also about the dumping site, what you said there, I always found in the communities that we go into and help and try and support is that you've cleaned up the driving range or taken a dumping site and cleaned it up. It also then has a immediate effect with the surrounding area.
Oh, absolutely.
It inspires other people to say, well, if that site looks so pretty, let me clean up my site.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if you ever factored that.
I'll tell you a story. Like, so the community then also takes pride in this facility that Rolani has built.
Yeah. And
I'll tell you a story. Right after we built the library, we got some nice furniture and stuff from Standard Bank, and it was beautiful, man. And it's probably like a month later, and people broke into the facility and stole some of the stuff. But you know who told us where it was?
The community. Yeah.
Because now they've got something they can be proud of.
Yeah.
So they're able to point us in that direction. Like, no. We actually saw person XYZ. They're the ones that broke in. So if you then able to take the cops, go there and retrieve our stuff. But now you're having the community that are looking after the place, because like I said, it gives their kids a place to go that is safe. But not only that, they get to learn. I mean, the work that Rolani does is so fantastic. So not just golf, they've now started playing hockey as well on the field.
Soccer.
They got helped as well by the University of Johannesburg, so they play a league. So it's all these things that come together, but the community takes pride in that facility, and they can see that, you know, this is work that continuously gets done. And for me, that's what keeps me going.
See similar, you know, similar, exactly, you know, what changed around him and how that influenced him and etc. to be where he is today. And what's so amazing is that, you know, I know I'm changing a little bit direction here, but when Sia says something, the whole nation listens.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what color. When they go onto that field, that's our captain.
Exactly.
And then when he has an argument with the ref, or somebody has, it's like, okay, so you want to mess with him?
Taking on the whole
that's
nation,
fine. You know, and I literally see that on a weekly basis. And also, I also will tell you that that's changed over time. And Sia would probably say to you that his achievements is ultimately what gave him great credibility. But the training, the extra time and effort he had to put in to get that, it's not, none of us ever see that.
No, you don't see that stuff. I mean, for him to change personality, for him to grow and become a better man, a better husband, father, older brother to, you know, his siblings, that without him getting to where he is, imagine what they turn out to be. You know, so in everything you do, there's an entire journey. There's so much work that goes on in the background that ultimately we are all pretty much a surplus of the choices and decisions that we make, right? And you just have to try every day to choose and pick the right ones, the ones that are going to build you to become a success, whatever success is in your head and how you see it. But it's hard work behind the scenes that people don't see the blood, sweat, and tears. But it's fine if they see the good end result. You know what you've put in to get yourself there.
OG, do you feel you're making progress? Do you feel it's moving golf forward? Do you feel there's kids that's already benefited from this?
And earlier on, that's why I said, I think the kids that are there now, unfortunately, are not going to be the biggest benefactors. Yes, they'll get the nice trips, they'll get some clubs, but for what I want to see in golf, it's not making a major dent, but you have to start somewhere.
100%.
I can't wish it to happen. And one of the reasons why I'd always said I wanted to do something was, and I'll tell you what, it's probably my biggest bugbear is golf clinics. Like, oh yeah, bring 20 kids and then we're going to get professionals to give them a lesson for one day, or we're going to give them one club, and then it's covered everywhere in the media. It's front pages of newspapers or whatever.
But so short-lived.
And then boom, we'll see you again next year. Like, what's happened in that year? That kid you gave one club to, or you gave one lesson to, how's that going to help him or her to develop into a better golfer? Or it's for aesthetics, it looks nice, but I would rather if company X says we're actually growing the game, don't take 1,000 kids and give them one.
I can take 2 or 3.
Take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Say for 3-4 years, we're going to support these kids. We're going to make sure they have a dedicated coach. We're going to make sure they can move from Meadowlands to Bryanston to Eboti to Grant to whoever is going to coach them. We are going to dedicate this amount of money that we say we do 10 clinics a year or whatever amount it is that you do, and we're going to focus on these 2 kids. I honestly believe if you do that for 5 years, you will get a much better golfer, you'll get a much better person, you'll get a well more rounded person than this is like almost a hit or miss situation where you got 20 kids coming to do 1 day clinic.
Yeah.
And then
looking for that miracle.
It's not going to happen like that. And therefore, so to your question, I don't think I'm moving quick enough. But like I say, these group of kids that we've started with the last 4 years, unfortunately, they're not going to be the ones that benefit. Once we've gotten to a position where I'm able to hire a qualified full-time coach that's going to be there every day, and I know Monday to Friday or whatever it is, these guys are getting quality coaching, they're getting quality support, and they can go out and compete, which is a big thing. They can go out and compete with kids at their level, nationally, internationally. If I can say I've got 2 kids that I know are competing every week in, week out, playing the best course, not necessarily the best, but playing against the best kids in the country to give themselves that opportunity to grind and sharpen that iron so they can get to a level where if they do want to turn pro, we've given them the necessary tools. Then I'll be like, just as we're making a difference.
Yeah.
But we have to start somewhere. So, like I said, I don't have $20 million, but I've got relationships with people that can help me in the meantime while we build to get there. So it's a very, I mean, we've got so much work to do. I'm already dealing with a kid that probably hasn't eaten lunch. So you're gonna tell him to come spend 4 hours at a range in Soweto where he must go and probably hit a ball that's broken with a heavy club that someone's given. But like, we've seen it. I mean, from the kids that started initially with us, we probably have about 10 that have stayed on for the 4 years. You know, So, and that's why I want to take them out. So it's important, and especially what we've done the last couple of months, is it's important for me to say, kids, on day X, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going to go play at Serengeti. We're going to go play Royal Johannesburg. Because everybody expects me to take them to Soweto Country Club.
Yeah.
But if I don't expose them to what's out there,
completely.
then I don't necessarily inspire them. So as much as, yes, we are doing the work, there's so much work that needs to be done. And also, you kind of become like a one-man machine. So people do not quite, and okay, to your question about whether this is an ego thing and have my name attached to it, that does nothing for me. It benefits me nothing. I've never made a cent from the work that I do. And you must also appreciate that it's extra work that I take on. I've got a job, got a family, I got 2 kids that I need to share my time with, my resources with. But on top of all of that, I choose to do this other stuff, which I don't necessarily have to do, but I choose to do it. And it's difficult because as much as people see your passion and your dream, people don't quite share as passionately in it as I do. You know, I started with people and it was great. Yeah, we're going to start a foundation. Cool, I'll do A, B, C, D. After 4 years, it's probably myself and Rolani that are still here. You know, for various reasons, whatever they are. But someone will come and say, oh, I'll help you with X, Y, Z. And they'll help you for 2 months and say, oh, yeah, by the way, can you start paying me? And I'm like, bah, I don't earn money for this. I don't have money to pay you. And then it's like, oh, no, sorry, I can't help you. Then I'm back to square one. Wait, this is where I put my own money into this foundation, you know, to make it work, because I believe in the dream, and I believe that one day we will get to that point where I've got kids that can go out, compete, and we hopefully almost have to ask for nothing, but we've set up the processes and plans and everything in place that we have the resources and it can work. And I think it's that belief in the dream that keeps me going.
I think this is a call out to the big corporates. And because I'm from Swaziland, I've got an example that I'd like to share. So Nobutle's father, Johannes Lamini, he got sponsored by the RNA to get his certification as a coach. So they flew him overseas and got him coached and whatnot. The RNA sponsored a vehicle that he could drive all around Swaziland. They sponsored some golf clubs and some golf balls, and then MTN, I think, was part of the sponsorship that basically paid for him to get from A to B, etc. So he would, like, on a Monday go to Big Bend and go do a clinic with some kids, you know, from the local schools. Then on Tuesday he'd go to Simunye, then on Wednesday he'd go to Mhlamanatsi, Thursday he'd go to Mbabane. You know, you're catching my vibe. But because of the RNA and like MTN as a sponsor, it gave the kids in Swaziland an opportunity. And Johannes didn't do it for the money. I mean, he didn't really get paid. He just did it for the passion. He was that type of guy. And look, it produced Nobuhle Dlamini.
And everybody around that.
And everyone around that. I mean, we were chatting with Dave the other day. He's a friend of mine. He works at Nkonyeni Golf Club, Robert Shiba. I don't know if you met him.
Jeez, man, what an incredible golf course. I was blown away going to Nkonyeni. Like, I need to hit like a golf tour back there. Like,
it's amazing.
Such an impressive
I'm
place.
sure you would have bumped into Robert Shiba, but he was really, really good. And I don't know if it was Dave Usendorf, but someone sponsored Robert because he got into the Junior British Open. And he's never left the country. Okay. Jeez. He used to obviously take a taxi with his clubs and go to the range and practice and whatnot. And he was very good. And they drove him. I'm lying. They flew him to Johannesburg and got him out into the world. Because just imagine, as a local Swazi kid, you go to the Junior British Open, you've never been on a flight, you've never been out of Swaziland, and now you're going to the UK to go play in a golf tournament, and you could be great, but the moment is too big for you because you've just,
overwhelming.
You've grown up in a location and everything is just overwhelming. We were actually talking about a story. Robert was doing really well in the tournament, and then he went double, and the manager said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I was thirsty." He says, "But there's water all around you. Just take it. It's available." But, coming from Swaziland, he didn't know. He wasn't used to it. So, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked. But it doesn't take a lot for corporates to provide a service of this example. It's a vehicle here so you can get kids from A to B. It's golf equipment. It's golf balls. I mean, he drove to cricket fields, or rugby fields, and he would go have a shag bag and the kids would hit and stuff like that. Dave Usendorf was part of this, and he would bring some clubs. And if a kid got an 8-iron that week, and when, let's say, they come 3 months later, okay, we know that Bongani has got an 8-iron. Next time when you come, he's going to get a 7-iron.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. They looked after those clubs like it was their own baby.
No, absolutely. That's why I said, like, you give a kid a brand new club, man, it's like Christmas in August.
Yeah.
So I think it's a call out to some corporates. It doesn't take a lot, but those small things do make a difference if you do it the right way, if that makes sense.
No,
it doesn't need to be money, but it obviously, you just need those certain things that would make the foundation or everything a bit more easier or manageable to do what you need to do. And I think that's important. I think that's an important message.
No, absolutely. And without that support, like I said, I mean, it might take us even longer to get to where we want to. But you speak exactly. If Johannes doesn't have that support, he can't continuously do the work. Like, I've got a guy at Tepo now. He coaches and helps the kids, but Tepo, if I'm not paying him a stipend, what's he saying to his family at home? I can't expect him to come sit every day with these kids and watch them hit balls and teach them how to hit balls, and I'm giving him nothing in return, right? And my dream is I'd actually like to see this guy become a qualified PGA teaching pro.
Correct.
How do I then balance me getting the kids out to go experience this, to save the money for Tepo to get this qualification, but Tepo doesn't quite meet the requirements needed to get the PGA pro license, or what? You know what I mean? There's so many factors that are against us already.
Moving parts,
and so we have to try and box clever, so we move with what we can at the time.
OG, I'm fortunate enough that I was involved in a butchery business, but I always say when people come to the work, so most of the staff, let's say, get up at 4:00.
Yeah.
Then it's a walk to the closest depot of taxis. Then would be taxi 1. Then that taxi driver would upset them by driving like a maniac. And we think, but that's upsetting. It starts their day in an upsetting way too. Then it's the second taxi. So then let's say by 6:30 or 7:00 we work. But no. This started 3.5 hours ago.
Yeah,
for you, it started 45 minutes ago. You got up, quickly had your cup of coffee, got into your car with aircon or heating depending on the time of the year, put your favorite song on, get in the great mood, get ready for work. And why that's important for me is that you have to, if you live and work and operate in this country, it's a reality that you have to always incorporate in your way of dealing with things.
Absolutely.
The expectation, when a staff member is saying, and of course there's always going to be members that take advantage of it, but when I'm late for 15 minutes, it not necessarily might be the same late as I got late out of bed versus there was about 14 delays before I got here, and completely out of my control.
Absolutely.
So OG, I really honor you for doing that, and I don't even know what I can say to encourage you further, because obviously you've got your own determination for that. But 4 years of doing something that doesn't necessarily benefit you in a direct matter, and I mean financially into your pockets, which then goes into your families to take Disney trips overseas. That's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works. And there's foundations that come from old God money.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. I'm not saying it's any easier or any less noble, but it is a very different world.
No, absolutely.
And I'm sorry to say this, but I think what I really like about Gifted the Givers, I don't know if you know that foundation, Solomon.
Yeah.
What they've done is they said to themselves, we're gonna focus on the problem. Forget color, political, this, that. And what it did was it made them a magnet of anybody that's got any spare capacity. You want to give it to Solomon.
Exactly.
Because he's going to treat it with respect. It doesn't mean they're faultless. Doesn't mean we're just all humans.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And OG, that's the authenticity that I really like about where your foundation is going. But also, like we Frank Testa, I don't know if you ever met Frank Testa or not, but there's so many people that's behind the scenes in golf, sponsorships and helping out. It's absolutely amazing, and they never get any airtime for
it. Not
it.
at all. And that's what I say to the kids. It's like, I'm not saying I'm doing this so you guys can play golf. Like I said in the beginning, there's like so many things you could do in this industry. Some people, you might not even know them, but they probably the guys who move the parts within the industry more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And unless I'm a kid from Moletsane, unless somebody tells me that, oh yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what is greenkeeping.
Yeah.
If all I know is somebody must say, study so you can be a doctor. If you don't, you might be a cop, or be a teacher. Greenkeeper. What's a greenkeeper? And unless I give you the avenue to say, there's a whole other world out there that we can try expose you to, that then it kind of opens up the horizon, opens up your mind to the possibilities that are out there, and all through this beautiful game that we all love,
But you have to ignite it.
Absolutely.
You have to ignite it.
You have to.
And what I liked what you said there, it's good to ignite it, and I appreciate that corporates sometimes play that role. Say, I'm a fire starter, I'll ignite it, but I can't see it through as an example. So whichever role that you play, you must just know it's a necessary role, and you are contributing towards that path.
Big time.
And OG, I'm very passionate, and Arthur Fari, but I tell you what, it's one of the worst things about school for me, that I just wish, I've come out of Forky's Potchefstroom, so it wasn't the most educated journey of my life. Joburg to us was like, what is this place?
Yeah.
But I wish that the teachers and somebody at some stage got involved. But I wish that somebody ignited to say that, listen, even if you go study to be an attorney, you don't have to practice. Yeah. It gives you a foundation to do anything you want after that. You have done some incredible interviews. Arthur and I spoke about it.
Get to that.
Arthur and I spoke about it before you get here.
Guys that I'm very jealous about. I see you've interviewed Didier Drogba, Sir Alex Ferguson, David Beckham.
Yeah.
So that's just to name a few.
Williams.
Serena Williams.
Serena just retired.
Mike Tyson.
So, like you say that, so Serena playing the US Open, and I mean, she's the GOAT, without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
She's
Michael Jordan. She's the Michael Jordan. She's Michael Jordan.
I mean, you got Tiger Woods
cheering
watching
on
her.
For you and just pushing.
The same Mike Tyson was at that same match that Tiger was at, and it gives you goosebumps to say, here's a kid from Compton, whose father absolutely believed in what he was teaching his daughters. And look what he's created. His daughter went on to change the world, change the face of tennis. So it shows you what is possible. And I mean, not everybody's going to be Serena, right? But same thing, if the dad doesn't have access to tennis or start teaching them, we don't get a Serena and a Venus Williams, and we don't have a Serena Venus Williams. We might not have a Coco Gauff or, a TFO. These are people that then get inspired. Also, oh man, we can play tennis too.
Michael Jordan.
Runner. So it's incredible.
Man.
Usain
Bolt. You know what I mean? All these people, and these days, I mean, sports cross-pollinate. So my career, I've been so fortunate to be able to have those interviews with those people, and sometimes I have to pinch myself to say, geez, bruh, yeah.
What was your favorite interview of all time, listing all these people?
That's a good one.
We're not going to hashtag Serena Williams to make sure she sees it.
Funny enough, Serena was probably one of my least favorites. Because, and sometimes that's the thing about, people coming to SA. I think they just come off a long flight and now they must do these things. You just sponsors obligations. And then you get there and someone tells you, listen, Serena's got 5 interviews, so you've got 10 minutes, so make it quick. So she's also not at her happiest. And so the interview in itself wasn't memorable. But after that, then you saw her go out and play tennis with kids, and then she came alive. Right? Yeah. So for me, that experience of watching her playing with the kids, that's what sort of stood out. But my interview with Serena was like she wasn't really engaged. Mike Tyson was an interesting character.
Did he speak about pigeons?
Nah, certainly not. But we talked a lot about just boxing and just his knowledge of boxing is incredible. Like he's a student of the art of boxing. And you just get captivated by that because I'm sure he can talk for days about himself, but Mike Tyson can tell you about heavyweight champions of 50, 60 years ago and give you the entire history and break down boxing in incredible. Oh no! For me, that's what blew my mind. So that one was a cool one. Didier Drogba as a Chelsea fan was so dope.
Can imagine.
And he was chilled. Where the Serena one wasn't cool, the Didier Drogba interview was cool because he's like the guy next door. It's like, this is the guy. Like, hey, man, like we've known each other for a long time. And so I appreciated that about him.
Humbleness, was it a humbleness?
No,
about
he's super humble. Also, I mean, you understand the background he's from, like in Cote d'Ivoire. Like for that guy like that to become pompous, and rightfully so. I mean, he's one of the greatest strikers Africa's ever produced, ever seen in the Premier League. If he were to be pompous, like,
it's okay.
You'd understand. Same thing with David Beckham. Now, the thing about David and I guess the superstars is the people around them are the fussy ones. Once we got down to sit,
he was just a normal guy.
Lovely. We had such a brilliant chat with David Beckham. Absolutely incredible. And it's then when the people start saying, wrap up. 15 minutes. And he's like, oh, it's a time up. And he enjoyed the interview himself. For me, that was incredible.
Sir Alex
Ferguson.
Sir Alex. I mean, I'm a Man United hater, but he's Sir Alex after all, right?
I hope you watched the Arsenal game on Sunday.
Yeah, listen, someone needed to bring Arsenal down to
yes, exactly.
So thanks, Man United. But yeah, Sir Alex also incredible. It's tough to hear him with that Scottish accent. But
I suppose, yeah, it is quite tough.
But also that one also wasn't really like a long time we had with him. Especially the thing you find about the football stuff is that everybody wants to do them, where you get lucky with like David Beckham was literally two of us and we each had like 20 minutes with him, and that was incredible. So you can get to interact with him a lot more, where Sir Alex was literally 5 of us and listen, bruh, you got 2 minutes, go in, do your thing and come out. But also it's incredible, you're just sitting there with the man and with all that he's achieved, like it's amazing.
You have that aura about him.
Yeah. Like the minute you walk in that room, you kind of feel it, like
it's crazy.
Like this is a great, like this is someone who's achieved the greatest feats in football history. So that one was amazing. Who else? Let me see. I'd like but there's still a few. There's a couple that I'm like
on your bucket list.
I'm like, bro, if I could get a Tiger Woods, obviously would be the ultimate. Michael Jordan as well. Yeah. Although one of my favorite, never really, but for me, meeting Diego Maradona was huge. We never did the interview, but just that brief moment was incredible. Like, obviously, like such an enigmatic human being he is.
Was that during the World Cup?
During the World Cup, yeah, in 2010. So that was quite cool as well. But I never really got to interview him, but that was dope.
Going to the World Cup, I know a lot of South Africans have got their most memorable moment in the World Cup, but what was yours?
Oh, there were so many. I probably went... It's like 21 games. So I was crisscrossing the country. And I was in a buzz for a month, pretty much.
I must be honest, me too.
It was incredible. So for me, the entire World Cup experience was amazing. And what people don't know, so working in broadcasting in this country, if you work for a non-rights holder, it's kind of hard because you get limited in what you can do. So about 6 months before the World Cup kicks in, I worked at ETV at the time, and it was clear we were not broadcasting the games, so we would be limited to shooting stuff all the way up to match day -1. At the games, we needed to be like 5 kilometers away from the stadium, and that's where we could do our things. But even there, you're not really in the action, right? So about 6 months before the World Cup, I get an offer from the SABC to say, come and join our World Cup team. And I'm like, oh man, that's incredible. So I go, I wait for the contract to come, it never comes. But at some point, they need to submit names and everything else so that their teams can be ready, their accreditation can get sorted out. But literally for 6 months, I keep asking for this contract. Yeah, we're going to send it to you. So it never comes, and the World Cup kicks off. But the beauty was that now technically I was part of their World Cup team, so I had open access to the World Cup. So I could go to training sessions, I could go to games that I would otherwise have not had access to if it wasn't for that, the rights holders accreditation. So I, although worked for ETV, covered the World Cup as a SABC person, which gave me so much access. So I could get to players, and you can imagine the guys over there, like Messi. It was incredible. That Spanish side, even pre-final, the stuff I got to do with the accreditation that wasn't necessarily mine, but was mine, was incredible. So not a lot of people know that I actually used an SABC accreditation to do ETV work, but it was a blessing in disguise. I think God was like, "Bro, you need to experience the World Cup at its full value, and I'm not going to give
ultimate
you
VIP pass,
bruh."
VVIP pass.
So it was incredible. For me, it was like a month-long party. So as a sports fan, it's super dope. And I always say I've got, I don't know, people can say about their jobs as well, if you're passionate about it, that I've got the best job in the world. I literally get paid to watch and talk about sports. And so I never take it for granted. And that 2010 experience taught me that, to really appreciate all those moments and what sport has been able to give me in my life.
Can you remember where you were when Shabalala scored the goal?
I know exactly where I was, and it breaks my heart because like I said, I worked for E at the time, and we had to be 5 kilometers away from the stadium. So I was at Crown Mines watching it on a little monitor, but I could hear everything that was happening at FNB. So it literally broke my heart. I never watched that opening game, but I could hear everything that was going on. So I saw it on the monitor. So
FOMO.
Oh no, the ultimate FOMO. The stadium's there, you can see the calabash, but you can't be there, so. That's crazy.
But shame, OG, this is going to sound like I'm bringing a bit of emotion, but I suppose it's a little bit of the kids that this is probably what they experience a lot when they see all of these things that go around it in the far distance of what incredible stuff is happening, the cars that drive around there, the players that come there, and literally a kilometer down the road there might not be access to water.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the reality.
And that's the reality, and hence I said, you have to spark the dreams to say, guys, it's possible. You can come from here and make something of yourself. You can come from here and not have to listen to a great game happening at Orlando Stadium, but you stay right next door but can't go to the game. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Durban doing the Comrades Marathon, and I went to watch an Amazulu and Golden Arrows derby, and the amount of kids that were running around asking for tickets was incredible. The stadium is at their doorstep, and maybe their dream is to play football, and some of the country's best players are playing on that night, but they can't get in. And you know how much a ticket is? It's $60. For me and you, it might not be much. But just as for a parent to give a kid $60,
it's like a pie and a Coke. I mean,
you know what I mean?
But in context.
And you know what I mean? So it broke my heart. Fortunately, I had 2, but there's a group of 10 kids, but I could only give 2 tickets. But amen, yeah.
But I think, OG, a lot of people realize, and I think it took maybe, I don't want to make this but I think people are realizing that we have to work on as a nation together.
Yeah.
Because it can't just keep being separated, because there's no winning in that whatsoever. No unless you have a private jet, there's no winning in that. You can't just, and a lot of people told us that you're an incredible storyteller. I sat here now and I'm just, you really are a very good storyteller. But and I hope we didn't get this wrong, but did you climb Kiimanjaro?
Yeah. Oh,
how? Okay, just had goosebumps. How do where do you get the courage, the motivation? Why? Why did you do that?
So I don't know, man. I kind of have, it's a weird spirit that I have.
It's definitely a godly spirit, no?
Definitely a godly spirit. Without God, I can't do any of the stuff. And some of the stuff I do sometimes post the event will amaze me myself, but I have a spirit of, you know, I can do spirit. Like, I can do it. Yes, it's tough, but I can do it. If I try really hard enough, I can do it. And I tell the story of how, I mean, I'll try shorten it, but ultimately how it happens that I go to Kiimanjaro is 2015, even let's say 2 years before that, I couldn't even run like 3 kilometers to save my life, right? And then I start running for some reason, I don't even know why. But I literally move up so quickly from my first 5K fun run to a 10K to a 21, and I did a 32, and then I was like, maybe I can run a marathon, and then I was like, nah, maybe let me do an ultra marathon. But to get to the ultra, I needed to qualify, so I needed to do a marathon, and it was all because at some point within that year I started running. I figured I could do the Comrades marathon, and it's like in the space of 6-7 months. And so someone said, yeah, do 2 oceans. So I did the 2 oceans, and I ultimately did the Comrades in 2019. Finished the race with 1:13 seconds to spare.
Just like so, barely
just
made
literally,
it.
just
I don't
made
think I'd make it.
You weren't on your knees at least.
No, fortunately I wasn't. I ran
Shame,
in
I
there.
appreciate
But
that.
anyway, then 2016, I think I now have learned how not to run, so how to prepare better. So I kind of have a better preparation, and then I ran a comfortable race. I think I did 11 hours something, but comfortably. I literally walked in there, jumping up and down.
11 hours was a good time.
Yeah. Post that, then I was still working for E at the time, and they had just signed a deal with the Nelson Mandela Foundation to say, can you guys cover our Trek for Mandela initiative, where, you know, a group of people go climb Kili to raise awareness and also raise funds to be able to buy pads for a girl child to go to school through, you know, and so, you know, the company's sitting around like, oh, geez, how do we send someone? And they're like, oh, this guy just did Comrades. You must be fit enough. Can you go? But so I can never say no. That's my other problem. I think that's my biggest problem. I can never say no. So I was like, yeah, Kiimanjaro, I'm sure I can do that.
Well, it worked in our favor for today, OG. I just want to quickly mention that. So if that's the case, thank you very much.
It's hard for me to say no. So anyway, I decide, okay, cool. So they tell me, yeah, the guys have been like preparing for like 6 months. They've gone camping, climbing, and all the stuff. Are you sure you can do it? I'm like, I'm sure I can do it. I just ran Comrades. I'm sure I can do it, you know. But it's a completely different challenge to Comrades. I mean, so
Climate,
to this day,
oxygen.
I say summiting Kiimanjaro is the toughest thing I've ever done. And I say that having ran 2 Comrades and having finished a Cape Epic mountain bike race.
So you're not going to go to base camp of Everest, eh?
No, not a chance. But also, if you give me the opportunity, I'll probably say yes.
Yeah. Just have to get a reason for you to say
you
no.
know what I mean? And so 2016, I joined this group of people, and it was cool because I took the camera, I was documenting the stuff, and I happened to climb with 2 friends of mine, which just made it more comfortable. Letsholonyane and Guguzu. And so it was quite cool. I guess the first 5 days of it, which was, you know, the time it took us to go to the top. But ultimately it ended in like sad tragedy because we lost Gugu on that trip. And yeah, like, so we made it to, I mean, day 3.
So that brings things home, huh?
Oh, it's crazy, man. I think day 3, day 4, when we got to sort of just before summit night, he was just not so well, and he looked sick. It was tough, and so when we left at midnight to go summit, we got told that they just literally started sending him to the bottom of the mountain, because obviously the higher you go, the less oxygen, and because he wasn't feeling well, it just gets worse and worse. And that's the tough part about Kili, is the air is so thin. I mean, I think I tried to describe it to someone to say, I don't suffer from headaches, but I had the biggest headache in my life, and it felt like somebody had literally knocked me on my head with a baseball bat. That's how bad it was.
And it stays like that?
It stays like that. Like, you're literally, it could take you a good 20 minutes to walk 10 meters.
That's crazy.
Right? And so, I mean, we do that. We summit. Some of us, I think, I can't remember the numbers, but not all of us summit. Some of us do.
Then we start coming down, and now we know Gugu's gone, but we don't really know what's happened until we got sort of all brought together, and the news was like broken to us that sadly he didn't make it, and it was tough. So from an emotional, spiritual, physical point of view, like I said, that's the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my life. And I mean, his wife was there with him, which for me broke my heart even worse. Like, let's say, was such an incredible woman. But yeah, that was tough.
Yes, like OG.
Don't even know what to say.
I don't even know what to say to that. I didn't know that, and yes, like that must have given you life experience.
It's crazy, and sometimes you never know these things. But at the time, so that the day before he passes, I've got a photo somewhere of myself, well, of him actually. So we literally, where we are, the day before we head over to just before we summit, we're literally, the campsite sits literally just above the clouds. So we're sitting and we're overlooking the clouds, like myself and we're talking about fatherhood. Like, our kids were young at the time. I think they were similar ages. And we're talking about fatherhood and how we're looking forward to going back home to see our kids and how we need to be. And he's sharing all the stuff. And I mean, retrospectively, you think about, geez, maybe this guy was saying, people, you can't really say you, but the conversation itself and what we talked about that day, like, lives with me forever. And that's why I say to you, like, I don't do this for my own benefit. I mean, the time I spent trying to make this happen, I could equally go spend it with my kids and, who miss me when I go to work and I go for long periods of times. But I always go back to the conversation him and I had. And he was such an incredible human being. I mean, Gugu gave of himself, and that lives with me forever. Like, Gugu was an incredible athlete, and I think I say to people, he was the fittest person, I think, on that trip. The amount of people he's helped just at the Cape Epic, just getting into mountain biking, and just the incredible human being he was. It's that sort of spirit that lives in me, and I guess everyone that he impacted, and we kind of have to keep his memory and his spirit alive whichever way we can.
It's crazy.
Thank you for sharing that with us, OG. That will stay with me also. That makes me almost a bit sad.
Yeah. Listen, ultimately though, and that's why I say his wife is like such an incredible woman. We continue to celebrate his life and what he stood for and what he did, and that's it. I think he was such an incredible human being that, as sad as the experience was, and kind of going back and thinking about it brings back those things, but I think he was such a great human being that, if anything, man, he brings you back into life. I work with his sister now, which is like so incredible. Like, I see her sometimes and I want to cry or whatever, but it's these are the things we do.
Left his mark on you, which is great.
I've got a tattoo somewhere here. So when Gugu passed away, so all my tattoos mean something, right?
Okay.
So when Gugu passed away, the logo of our trip at Kiimanjaro, Trek for Mandela, I got that with a dove to symbolize us having left a warrior on the mountain, which is
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring up the Tiger Woods tattoo.
That's more than that. So definitely want to. When you spoke about, I never followed the traditional route. Yeah. So I never went to media university or school, whatever you want to call it. I'm not quite too afraid with the terminologies around it. You just started doing.
Yeah.
And that got you into the sort of direction. And I think that traditional route is being challenged more than ever. But it's still, there's still this idea that there's a traditional route, and if you don't follow that route, you might not get where you want to be.
It's tough. Like, so, I mean, you get people that will ask me, like, how do I maybe get into journalism or get into television presenting, and all that stuff. And I always say my route to where I am is probably completely different to anyone else. I mean, we all have our journeys of how we get to where we are. But what I went to school for, I only used for like 3 years of my life, and I knew immediately, the minute I started working there, that this is not for me. But what I knew is that I'm passionate about sport, and I know nothing about. I started in radio. I knew nothing about radio.
In fact, I think they said you didn't have a really good voice.
No, yeah. I mean, so I tell people, and this is why I say, even if you give me 40 no's, I'll keep knocking at your door, because when I was in school studying IT, at that point, I think I knew what I really wanted to do. So, radio station YFM at the time, the news editor's name was at the time Udo Carlson. And he also did like the morning sports bulletin. So for 18 months, I asked this guy for a gig, and not even a paying gig, to say, can I just come on board, be an intern and learn? And we would have such amazing conversation back and forth. But the minute I would bring up the job part of it, or even an internship part of it, he would shut it down. But for 18 straight months, I pestered this guy, until one day someone actually said to him, hey, there's a kid that would like to come for an audition. Since I'm moving shows, can I bring him on? He's really knowledgeable. We chat about sports all the time. And he said, yeah, bring him on. It's cool. So I went, I did the audition. And then they were like, listen, he's not the greatest, doesn't have a voice for radio, but we can teach him certain things, right? And then once I got that, to say I got a foot in the door, then I asked him, I'm like, sorry, Udo, do you know who I am? He says, no. I'm like, I'm the kid you talk to every day on email. No for way. The past a year and a half. And now he's already said yes, remember. So he can't turn me back now. So he changed me for a month. Anyway, I still don't have the greatest voice on radio, but he gives me the job. And then I go and work for another 18 months without a cent. So the story you're talking about of having to catch 3 taxis, I would have to catch 3 taxis to get to IFM, to do a show on a Saturday morning at 6. And then having done that for 6 months, then they started using me on a weekday show to do bulletins between the 3 and 6 show, which is where now I had to catch those 3 taxis. So one from Rooiport to town to Rosebank, actually 2, not 3. It was 3 coming back. But I had to make it happen, right? Because here was an opportunity. Yes, there's obstacles, but I need to maneuver around those obstacles. After 18 months of working for free, I finally got a contract. And that contract honestly just gave me enough money to be able to now pay for my failures to get there, right? And then through doing that, like anything else, you get access to people. Great. I meet people, and a guy who was working at ETV, he was leaving, going to become a journalist. He was going to become a lecturing journalism at Pretoria Technikon. And he said, listen, man, I need to leave like really quickly. And my boss says the only way he's going to let me go is if I find my own replacement. Are you keen? I'm like, bro, I know nothing about television. He says, just come for an audition. We'll see how it goes. If it works out, it does. If it doesn't, at least we try. I go, same thing. The guy's like, yeah, listen, you got something we can work with. Same thing. I get, tutored for about a month before, but it takes me probably like another 3 months before I even first get on air. I remember the first story I did on air was when Patrice Motsepe brought Barcelona to come and play Mamelodi Sundowns, and Ronaldinho and that squad were here. That's the first piece of television I did. From a kid who never studied journalism, who knew nothing about radio, knew nothing about television, but immersed myself in those mediums to learn everything I can to be able to get my foot in the door. And once I was in, I learned so much that I keep myself there.
It's crazy. OG, your humbleness is incredible. And let me just explain to you what I mean. Mm-hmm. Most guys in your position would almost brag about the journey. You literally say, I will phone you 40 times if I have to. That's humbleness. You're not like, listen, I make contact with you, you work with me, or you don't want to work with me. No. I will pursue you with all my might and take as much opportunity or many attempts I need to in order for you to get my attention.
Yeah.
And that's incredible, the way that you tell and where you got from. Now, humbleness, and I know we're a little bit over time, but why is humbleness important to you? Because clearly it is. It's a natural...
I almost say if you tell people that you're humble, then I don't think you are. So it will be hard for me to say I'm humble. What I know is and here's what I know for a fact, and only based on my own life experience, is that nothing in life comes easy. If you work hard enough, it might not happen as quickly as you hope it does, but if you work hard enough and you keep at it, it will happen.
Consistency.
You have to do the consistency. It's those 10,000 hours. If you put those in, you might not be the greatest. I'm not the greatest television presenter, commentator, anything, but I work my ass off to at least get my foot in the door. Then once I'm in, I will learn. Like, you teach me, I've got that's the one thing, I've got a teachable spirit. I know nothing about a lot of things, but you give me the time, I will learn, and I'll immerse myself in that till I won't become an expert, but I will learn enough to be able to do the job. And that's literally what's gotten me where I am.
Well, let me just finish that part for you. I met you at Dainfin the first time. You might not remember. I don't even expect you to, because but I remember, and OG was there. I was like, OG's here. And you came and sat, and you basically spent 20 minutes with me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why would this guy want to spend 20 minutes with me? But you did. And that's why when we started all of this, and you just always stuck into my head. And Arthur and I feel so privileged that you are here today with us, OG. Most inspiring I felt ever when I spoke about this. And I hope that a lot of people will learn from this as well, and how to approach life, and what a bright future you are starting to create for the rest of all of us.
Yeah.
And for the foundations that you put in place now for that rewards to be yielded. I also just want to say to you that I know that you keep saying, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever that time frame is, that the benefit of that's going to be. But just like you, a Saturday morning from an uncle, you have also done that same inspiration and lit or ignited that same fire in probably hundreds, if not thousands of people around South Africa now. So thank you for that journey that you are prepared to go on to in order for all of us to benefit from it short term and in the long term. Create a better nation, a better inclusive nation, which creates a far better environment for every one of us in South Africa. So thank you for taking that steps. And OG is very brave. You might not see it as brave, you see it as natural, but I mean the braveness in time, the braveness in committing to something, because now it's committed.
Yeah.
That's a brave. People don't understand when you put yourself into that position. You understand what I mean?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a commitment that you put yourself under, and for most cases, a lifetime of commitment. I hope that we will have the privilege. I will hope that we will have the privilege one day to have you back again, because what I have here on my right, and I still want to discuss with you, is a very long list of things.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time, OG, today. I'm so grateful. And I wish that we can carry on, but I also want to be respectful to the audience.
Listen, I don't think I'm that interesting that you want to watch me for 2 hours. But I would another listen. It's incredible. I mean, sport and golf itself, what it's given me in my life is just absolutely incredible and beyond my wildest dreams. And that's why I say, if we can use this wonderful sport that we all love as a vehicle to change a country, the nation, or even two people by the smallest part, then let's use it for that. I think golf is probably the one sport where you can rock up
the club. No, absolutely no one.
Yeah.
Go on and spend 5 hours with them, and by the end of the day, you guys will
You
be
feel
friends.
like, you feel like
You know what I
we
mean?
know each other.
Exactly. Either I'll never want to play with you again,
Yeah.
or I'm going to call you next week and say, hey, let's rock.
Yeah, and I even see it in caddies, because I was raised that way, but I've got my feet and my ears quite on the ground. I don't come from a very privileged family, so I suppose that wealth and that people sometimes scare me. I know it sounds, and I'm not saying that they're better than anybody else, but that world I don't really understand. It's a world I don't come from, but I have to smile and wave every now and again in that world. But it is so incredible, OG, and I can tell you now that the reason you're sitting here is some of the guests that we spoke to, the impact that you've made on their lives, the hope that you've created for them. I think you're far more reaching than you think you are.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
And like the nature of your beast, people will talk on your behalf because of your humbleness and the way that you've impacted their lives. They will always promote you in the background, even though you might not be there to hear that. So thank you very much. And also, I wanted this in the family and all of that, but I understand we at a point now in time. So Arthur, thank you once again.
Thanks for having it. Thanks for having us, OG.
No, listen, thanks to you guys for the invite. Really do appreciate it, and yeah, I look forward to coming back to the podcast. There's so much to talk about, within this golf space of ours, ever evolving, ever growing, and yeah, anytime, give me a shout.
Last question, then we can cut it off.
It's what the final.
What would be your last 4-ball if you had one last round of golf to play? Who would be in that 4-ball?
I've thought about this before, and it's changed a lot over the years. As things stand, I think Tiger Woods is like a constant.
Got
it. In the amount of people that's changed over the years, this is my final 4-ball. It would be Tiger, myself, Michael Jordan, and unfortunately, the man who taught me this wonderful game, ignited the passion. And like I say, if my uncle doesn't take us to the driving range on a Saturday when we were 10 years old, even though I think it was to clean his clubs and shoes, if he doesn't, none of this really happens. May his soul rest in peace, but it would be, my uncle would be the 4th. So that would be my ultimate 4-ball if I could make wishes come true. Myself, Tiger, MJ23, and my uncle.
Amen, OG. Let's go amen on that one. maybe we get a Tiger call. Tell OG to come.
Tiger dog 082.
Thank you so much, OG.
Thanks, guys.
On the next episode of the Human Golf Show.
One night, lying in bed here in South Africa, I had that Nokia 3210. I don't know, the aerial of about 1 meter long, and I don't know, that big brick. And
I
this
wish
thing,
I kept mine.
Yeah, this thing rang at 3 a.m, and it was Amanda, and she was all teary and emotional, and she just lost in Key Biscayne in Miami, which was a massive tournament, and she just fired her coach. And she says, "I want you to coach me. You coaching me. You coming?" I said, "Whoa, slow down. I don't have a visa for the States. I don't. My dad's calling you in the morning. This is what's happening."